Good evening to you all. Warm welcome to ETV News. I am Grum Tariko. Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed held fruitful discussion on Wednesday with Kristalina Georgieva, Managing Director of the International Monetary Fund (IMF), on the sidelines of the ongoing U.S.-Africa Leaders Summit in Washington, D.C. The two dwelt at length on Ethiopia's transformative economic reform agenda. The Premier confirmed on social media that they also exchanged views about the need for debt resolutions. During the discussion, Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed expressed Ethiopia's resolve to preserve past gains. He also explained the government's commitment to further deepen his country's economic reform. Meanwhile, saying that the return of peace is a chance to accelerate economic transformation agenda, Abiy wrote on his social media page that he has discussions with President of the World Bank Group, David Malpass, on supporting the reform. In another development, the first ever in-person meeting held between Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed and U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken, the two discussed the urgent need for the swifter implementation of the agreement reached between the federal government and TPLF back in November. Secretary Blinken commended steps taken by the Ethiopian government to improve humanitarian access and begin restoration of essential services. Meanwhile, an Ethiopian diplomat who attended the meeting, which was held in the sidelines of the US-Africa Summit, told ETV that Ethiopia's re-engagement with the West is bearing fruits. Tigist Saresa has more on this.
The much-awaited US-Africa Summit kicked off on Tuesday in Washington, D.C. Its topic menu ranging from climate adaptation and energy transition to peace, security and governance. During his stay in the U.S. capital, D.C., Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed used the occasion to thrash out pertinent issues with Secretary of State Antony Blinken on the implementation of the Pretoria Agreement.
Secretary Blinken was briefed on how the ongoing reform for the past 4 years in Ethiopia has been life-changing to the general public. The two also delved into the issue of how to scale up bilateral ties. Also in the agenda was the accelerated implementation of the peace accord, which includes the disarmament of Tigrayan forces and the resumption of services, which is well underway.
Similarly, Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed held a constructive discussion with the U.S. National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan over a host of issues, including on the cementing ties of bilateral relationships of the two countries.
At the strategic level, there was an exchange of ideas about what the relationship between the two countries should be, where it should go from here, and what form it should take. The age-long bilateral ties have witnessed a fair share of triumph and untapped potentials.
For decades, Ethiopia has been a key ally of the U.S. in Africa. The two discussed ways of strengthening partnership, Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed added. The U.S. stated its repeated stand that it remains committed to supporting the African Union-led peace process, including the AU monitoring the verification mechanism of the peace agreement.
Police in Omo zone of the Southern Nations Nationalities and Peoples region of Ethiopia have intercepted over 6,000 kilograms of narcotics concealed in packages of gypsum powder and loaded on a truck en route to Kenya. The truck loaded with the drug has been intercepted while crossing the Barele town in Benzamai district of Omo zone. The seizure was made with support of close inspection carried out by special forces of SNNPR. A man suspected of smuggling the drug is said to have escaped, while the driver and 8 accomplices was arrested. Police said investigations are underway. Top Ethiopian diplomats say that it is high time that digital public diplomacy is intensified to more aggressively promote Ethiopia's interest. Armed with fresh memory of the success of the #NoMo movement, the initiative will see the protection of Ethiopia's interest. Digital diplomacy is an instrumental and new channel of communication in this age of information, meant to uplift the nation's endeavor in this regard.
We are now having a very new diplomatic landscape. We have a rising number of non-state actors playing a very influential role. It is not only governments representing states that are playing important role in promoting national interest. We have multinational corporations, we have the private sector, civil society, NGOs, and influential citizens that are becoming important actors in the diplomatic arena. In this regard, we have also new channels of communication, including digital diplomacy. It's not only conventional methods of diplomacy that we are employing, but also, as you rightly said, digital diplomacy is extremely indispensable to promote national interest, to reach out to not only governments, but also to those important non-state actors that I already mentioned. As a result, we have to cooperate, work with non-state actors using all means of communication.
A renowned Ethiopian diplomat in Madagascar, Zarihun Abebe, for his part, said that digital diplomacy is pivotal in the 21st century to advance the interest of the nation in the digital platform.
Digital diplomacy, it means a lot of things. The most important thing is using digital platforms to advance our interest, to promote our interest, and to protect our interest as well. So in that regard, we have been utilizing like social media. These days, the state no more is dominant force in controlling information. So the social media, for example, or the digital world, whether it is internet, like social media like Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, or YouTube, or internet platforms like blogging, individuals have these days a potential of, sharing and disseminating information. And these days, you can't wait for the big screen to announce the breaking news. You can have it in your pocket. Just having a smartphone connected to the internet would be enough. So the governments are able to reach to billions of people at the same time. So the revolution on the ICT technology, the information communication technology, has made it easier for people to control governments, to make governments accountable. At the same time, governments also to reach out to billions of people. So you need to utilize it properly.
Hello dear viewers, now I'm preparing to host the news package of the day. Before I head to the studio and present myself to the audience, I have to look presentable.
Hello dear viewers, I'm Tabitha John and this is Addis News Hour. Do stay with us.
Welcome back in. You are watching ETV News. President Sahle-Work Zewde urged African women to be at the forefront of the continent's peace-building process. Addressing the third African Women's Peace and Security Forum here today, the president underlined that African women should strive for the peace of the continent by working together. Johannes van Town has more on this.
The third African Women's Peace and Security Forum kicked off in the premises of the African Union Commission. This forum is organized by the Special Envoy for Women's Peace and Security of the African Union Commission and is being held under the leadership of the Ethiopian president. It aims to increase the role of African women in the peace and security of the continent. Sahle-Work said the role of African women remains pivotal in the sustenance of peace.
Our demands and actions are for women to have their place in these peace processes, mediation, negotiations, and implementation. Without their perspective, we cannot expect a lasting peace.
The president further underscored that African women leaders like Ellen Johnson Sirleaf have tried to elevate their country despite countless difficulties. According to Salorg, President Sirleaf is an example for African women, and younger African women need to come forward using the shoulders of women leaders.
We are here because we rose on your shoulders. I rose on your shoulders. You have been the mentor, a very good example to follow. You have given us your shoulders. We are where we are today. I'm telling my sisters present here, you can also use mine for you to go to the upper level. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Bineta Diop, Special Envoy for Women's Peace and Security of the African Union Commission, for her part said that although women are the prime victims of conflicts in Africa, the political process has reduced their role in negotiations and peace processes.
You all know that we still have conflict in Africa, ongoing conflict. But we know also that when conflict happens, the women play a role and should play, a role. What we have seen is women are victims, but we don't want it to say women are only victims. They are survivors. They are the ones who always pick up the pieces. But when it comes to negotiation, we don't see them. So as a special envoy on women, peace and security, we said, let's make sure that African Union have the tools, some tools to measure commitment, because head of state are committed to say that when we have women at the table, and if they are not at the table, we should not have peace negotiation.
The two-day forum is expected to map out strategies to elevate the role of women in peace and security in Africa.
A historian expressed hopes that the truce signed in early November in Pretoria, South Africa, between the government of Ethiopia and TPLF is bearing fruits. Talking to ETV here today, a historian with the Addis Ababa University, Dechasa Bebe, lauded the initiative for being a vivid demonstration of Africa's solution for African problem. Koshumel has the details.
Ethiopia, a nation of antiquities and one of the influential states in the Horn of Africa, is finally breathing an air of peace. This is following the truce between the Ethiopian government and Tigray forces in early November, laying out the roadmap for implementation of a peace deal that both sides reached in South Africa this month. A recent encounter between the two groups in Shire, a town in north-central Tigray, has helped map out strategies for the disarmament of TPLF's combatants is a significant improvement in this regard. Talking to ETV, lecturer at Addis Ababa University, Dechasa Bebe said the peace agreement signed between the federal government and the TPLF has begun to bear fruits.
The overall destruction or whatever casualties I think came to an end because of the process, the peace process. Just from the very beginning, or from the first day to the present, we didn't hear any shoot or any whatever activities that took lives of a human being or other material destruction. So I think it is one fruit of the peace process.
Both sides said they were committed to the declaration, stressing it was the only way to restore peace and stability. They have also expressed resolve fully dedicate themselves into implementing the Pretoria Agreement and this declaration. Ethiopian military officials and TPLF had reached an agreement on the disarmament of TPLF fighters and entry of the Ethiopian military into the Tigray capital of Mekelle. The federal government said in a statement issued after the signing. Dechasa also underscored that the peace accord is a vivid demonstration of Africans solving their problems by their own.
We can say also Africa is becoming in a position to solve or look way for its problems by itself. I think as far as my understanding is concerned, things are carried out entirely by the Africans themselves. So we can say Africa is in a position to, is becoming, at least becoming in a position to solve its problem by itself.
The role of scholars, it was pointed out, remains critical. Dechasa said intellectuals should support the peace deal by sharing their knowledge and experiences to achieve its goal.
we can also share ideas from some of our historical experiences, how we used to solve our problems, African problems, Ethiopian problems. So lesson can be adopted from those historical experience. It is the intellectuals who had that knowledge or that experience from their readings. Intellectuals, as far as I know, can play multiple roles in shaping some of the processes.
The aftermath of the peace agreement is witnessing restoration of basic services in conflict-affected areas of Tigray and neighboring states of Amhara and Afar.
The 70th Global Institute.
It's expected that
Ethiopia is Ethiopians
Our news is always aired on Monday to Friday on 11 a.m. and 9 p.m. and also on Saturday and Sunday on 9 p.m. Make sure to follow us.
Welcome back, and you are watching ETV News. The Intergovernmental Authority on Development, IGAD, has launched a new media network to help boost the reporting on peace and security issues in the region. The regional bloc did so in the hope of helping peace prevail in the volatile region to pave the way for greater development. Journalists, media regulators, as well as other media practitioners discussed with the aim of boosting contextual coverage of peace and security issues. Haftam Washagre has attended the event and compiled the following report.
Established back in 1996, the Intergovernmental Authority on Development has been working for the much-coveted sustainable peace in the region. That explains why it launched regional media networks so as to alleviate challenges related with peace and security in the region. The media outlets must play their fair share in the restoration of peace and security issues by disseminating accurate information.
The IGAD Peace Initiative is crucial, and media can play an important role in disseminating peaceful information in the conflict-affected countries or areas. Furthermore, media can also alert the peace implementers with early information that can help to mitigate peace in the region, whereby conflict can be mitigated before it happens.
The media is identified as a very important partner in ensuring that there is a promotion of peace and security, and also to ensure that there is creation of strong and independent institutions to ensure that there is accountability. Having said that, all of us, we are aware of the challenges that we face as a region. In the individual IGAD member states, there are various challenges on peace and security, be it in Ethiopia, Somalia, Sudan, everywhere.
Participants also called upon all IGAD member states to work cooperatively with media outlets in a bid to provide accurate information in the turbulent region.
IGAD tried to strengthen the media, because without media reporting, member countries or the IGAD team will not be able to get that information. For example, we have, like in South Sudan, the Citizen that is there to monitor peace implementation in the country. They need information, and this information can only be delivered through the media as the platform that can inform the authorities adequately on what is happening and on timely basis.
As individuals, we can do stories, we can tell the story, but we can always achieve more as a group. And therefore, we are seeing this positive step by IGAD by calling us to the table to discuss the role of media. And we think that the media in the region stands to benefit through this network by having diversity, of information, because sometimes reporting on conflict requires that you have a lot of information, which usually does not come if you are just seated in your newsroom in Addis, or there's a journalist in Nairobi, another one in Juba. When you bring all those resources together, you are able to tell the story within the right context. You are able to access the right people to give you information.
The media practitioners established a steering committee to liaise with IGAD on creating structures for proactive communication of the often sensitive topics on peace and security.
Meanwhile, the Intergovernmental Authority on Development, IGAD, in collaboration with the Ministry of Agriculture and various stakeholders, launched the Refugee Impact Response Project, which will be implemented during the next 5 years. The project targets refugees and the local community where they are sheltered. Stakes including IGAD gathered in Gambela town at the launching of the event. Kasaun Chane presents the story, filed by our reporter in Gambela, Miftah Abdul Qadir.
The Refugee Impact Response Project was launched in the presence of senior leaders of the Ministry of Agriculture, development partners and other stakeholders in the Gambela region. During the occasion, the IGAD authorities underscored that the Refugee Impact Response Project will address the problems of the local communities who help reside the refugees in Ethiopia and East Africa at large.
The infrastructure project includes 393 human and animal health facility, 751 education facility, 398 water supply facility, 1,126 kilometers of road.
The government of Gambela Regional State and the DRDF Steering Committee have been doing a excellent job in the implementation of the DRDF in the 4 refugees hosting waradas.
The purpose of the project is to help reduce the social and environmental impact that may occur in the area where refugees and asylum seekers reside. Representatives from the Ministry of Agriculture also said that the first phase of the implementation of the project focuses on alleviating development problems faced by the refugee communities. Stakes also devoted some time for a thorough discussion of lessons learned in the first phase and takeaways for the second.
The previous report was presented by Johannes van Town and not Kasaun Chane, and our apologies. At least 100 people have been killed in flooding in Kinshasa, the capital of Democratic Republic of Congo. There have been landslides across the city of 15 million, destroying homes and roads. Tugastanis has more from Al Jazeera.
The backbone of the Democratic Republic of Congo's highway system, the N1, cuts in two. Heavy rains across the capital, Kinshasa, have submerged entire neighborhoods. It is being described as some of the worst flooding to ever hit the city. A landslide slammed into this home in the city's Binza Delvaux district. 9 members of the same family were killed.
We went back to the house to sleep since we were soaked and cold. We went back to bed, and just after, the wall collapsed on the children and the parents and then a neighbor who was passing by. I find it hard to bear. I have no strength to bury the dead bodies.
Poor regulation and rapid urbanization have made Kinshasa increasingly vulnerable to flash floods, which have become more frequent due to climate change. Many homes have been poorly built on flood-prone slopes, and the city suffers from the inadequate drainage and sewerage.
I've been a widow since 2015, and now my house is gone with the rain. I can't find one of my children. I don't know where he is. I'm a poor woman who is managing, but I don't know where to go. I've lost almost everything, even my clothes.
The DRC's Prime Minister and the provincial governor have been visiting flooded areas around the city. They hope to reopen the Key-in-One highway in the next 4 days, but until it's repaired, the Capstone's main supply route is cut off.
Everyone passes here, the traders. Now we will suffer. More entries of goods or even fuel will not be able to arrive in Kinshasa.
In 2019, dozens of people were killed in similar flooding across Kinshasa. And as heavy rains become more frequent, many in the city of 15 million are left wondering when this will happen once again.
española. Con el chándal rojo sonríe, sonrisa abierta. Sergio Ramos. Al lado los jugadores de la selección holandesa. Les piden los árbitros que le dejen pasar porque el que va por allí siempre, Juanma, el de siempre. Intentando ponerle una barretina a la Copa del Mundo. Gracias al cielo no lo ha conseguido. No por la barretina, evidentemente, sino porque este pintamonas no hace más que empañar. Cómo se ha ido, de qué manera de ello vamos por otra patada. Va en su mano, buscando el primer palo, la pelota hacia él. ¡Remate! ¡Intenta de la Piqué! ¡Posibilidades! ¡No! ¡Qué remate de Sergio Ramos! ¡Qué pedazo de remate que ha sacado este Kellenburg! Primera del partido de la medio para Sergio. ¡Oye, qué fallo! El balón para Caos. Se precipita Dirk Kuyt. Y nos quitamos el susto del estadio.